What's up, B.N.H family? Back once again, and today we got our boy Larry the Legend back again, man. This one is called A Courtship of Rivals. You know, a lot of people in the comments been telling me to react to this. Finally getting to it. You know, it's like an hour and a half long, so I think I'm gonna do like maybe about three or four parts to it. So, you know what I'm saying? Let's get into it.
Talk about every day, somewhere. If I go to a foreign country, magic, what magic? I mean, it's the same everywhere.
We don't have to see each other. We don't have to say hello. We don't have to call each other.
That's my main competition. It's always been like that.
You know you got this tight bond with this cat, and you don't have to see him for a year or two. But you're always going to be linked to him.
We got this connection that's never going to be broken. I mean, right to our graves. They'll be talking about this 100 years from now.
We still talking about it too.
It all began here in Salt Lake City, Utah, on the night of March 26, 1979. It was the NCAA Championship, Indiana State versus Michigan State, a game that still ranks as the highest-rated college final ever on television. A game that's now remembered as a prologue to a rivalry that transformed a sport and intertwined two legacies. But on that night, March 26, 1979, the first time Magic Johnson and Larry Bird ever went head-to-head on a basketball court, they were simply two young men trying to win a very big ball game.
Well, this is probably the biggest game I'll ever play in my life, and I just feel like, you know, I'm representing not only myself, my team, but we're representing our school and our town, Terre Haute.
Well, it's a dream come true, really, for me. I won the state title back in my home state, and then my next accomplishment was going to the NCAA and playing in a game like tonight in the finals.
They were two stars thrown together by the cosmos to compete, but only one of them had been groomed for the spotlight. In his case, it seemed since birth.
I think his upbringing in East Lansing really put that smile on his face in the beginning, and it never came off.
Born August 14, 1959, Irvin Johnson grew up in Lansing, the gritty industrial capital city of Michigan. Raised under this little roof, he was one of Christine and Irvin Johnson Sr.'s 10 kids. Christine was a school custodian, while Irvin Sr. worked two jobs nearly around the clock.
My father, he got up early every morning, 6 o'clock or so, and he went to work on his trash hauling truck every single day. Around noon, he would come home, catch a nap, and then he worked for General Motors for 30 years. And he won an award for never being late and never missed a day.
As a youngster, Irvin displayed his own strong work ethic on the blacktop.
I was out there all day long. Before we went to school, the bus leave at 7:30, I was out there at 6:30 working on my game. My mother sometimes had to bring me food, or she would have one of my brothers and sisters, go get that boy so he could eat something.
From a very young age, Irvin knew what he wanted to do. He had it all planned out.
My dreams were to play in the NBA and become a businessman.
The first neighborhood basketball powerhouse, Sexton High.
I knew the players, I knew the tradition. I wanted to be a part of that. And it was on the west side of town, which was, at that time, predominantly black.
But when Lansing, like many cities in the mid-'70s, began busing to desegregate its school system, Irvin's journey took an unexpected detour to a predominantly white school across town.
My first day at Everett High School was my first time I really had to understand there was a race problem. Nobody white would speak to anybody black, and nobody black would speak to anybody white.
A lot of racial tension, a lot of fights, rioting. They didn't want minorities there.
He kind of shrugged it off, and basically his attitude was, okay, well, I'll overcome this.
Whenever there was any racial problems, the principal would get Irvin and go talk to these kids. I can just see him with his big hands, calm down, just calm down. He'd break up fights.
Talk with his friends, tell him, let it go, we can't fight about everything. Let's just chill, let's play basketball.
And there was no dispute over Irvin Johnson's ability to play ball. His talent was so great that soon after his varsity debut, a local reporter, dazzled by his exploits, gave the budding star a nickname.
In the beginning, I thought it was foolish and dumb. I didn't know nothing about a nickname. Then what happened was, you start saying, wait a minute, it fits my game. Hanging out with my boys on the street corners, we used to say tonight, won't you come on by? And I said, what's a kegger? So he said, well, what it is, we get this big keg of beer, and you just go for it. Okay, well, what time does the kegger start? Because regular party time in our neighborhood is 10, 11 o'clock. The kegger starts at 7. I said, the party starts at 7 o'clock? And I said, okay, man, I'm gonna come to the kegger. We had a good time. The music was kind of bad, but we had a good time,
His senior year, Johnson did at Everett what he had planned to do at Sexton, win the state championship. And when it came to choosing a college, he decided to stay where the love would be assured, home in Lansing.
Next year, I will be attending Michigan State University.
At MSU, Magic's star quickly went national. But atop the college game, he soon discovered a certain presence beside him.
The first time I saw Larry Bird was actually in a magazine. Saw his stats, blown away by his stats. But let's see if he can really do it against us.
I don't know, I just had to point something. It's almost like these two were meant for each other. Because it's one, look, they both got the same number, 33. I just peeped that out. But I know it's like Larry kept his 33. I guess Magic was like, well, we can't be the same forever, so let me switch to 32. But I just peeped that, though. It's like they was like meant for each other, you know what I'm saying? They had the same number. They come from two totally different backgrounds, you know what I'm saying? But then they met up in college and then they met up in the pros. It was, I don't know. That was just that's called destiny, you know.
And that's always a mindset of black players if he's a great white player.
In 1978, after his freshman year, Magic would quickly find out when both he and Bird were chosen to play for Team USA in the World Invitational Tournament.
They would put Larry Bird and I on the same team together to scrimmage, right? It was blowing my mind because he's dominating Jack Givens, Player of the Year in college basketball. Larry Bird is eating him alive. I couldn't wait to call home to tell my boys, man, this dude named Larry Bird is for real. This is the baddest white dude I've ever seen in my life.
Well, I thought he was very good. There's no question about it. I thought he's probably the best guard on the team.
Irvin Johnson, look at that.
We didn't get to play a lot, but you could tell.
I think our first game was in Kentucky. We got about a 10, 12-point lead. Man, they put us in. Went to 25, 30, just that fast.
Fast break again, 3-on-2. Griffith, look at that steal by Larry Bird.
Take us out, the lead go back down, put us back in.
That's Bird and Johnson.
The show start again.
When you play with Magic, there's just something about it. You want to make that extra pass. You want to get that rebound and start the break.
We came down a couple times. I go behind my back, no look to him. he no-look back to me, and I'm laying it up. I'm saying, oh, man.
Here's that last play. Magic Johnson going in, drops off the Bird. Bird puts it back off inside to Johnson. Superman.
This guy got game.
They had some wonderful moments on the court, but they probably spoke to each other 4, maybe 5 times during that entire time period, and it was more like, hello, how are you this morning, Larry? I'm good, Magic. What'd you have for breakfast? Don't remember. Have a nice day.
But such curtness was hardly strange coming from Larry Bird, who was not only one of college basketball's best players, but also its biggest enigma.
I think he was a mystery to the extent that he wanted to be a mystery. He didn't enjoy doing interviews. He didn't go out of his way to do them. He wasn't particularly good at them. He was kind of like, hey, this is who I am. You want to know who I am? Watch the game. That's who I am.
I start to read materials that you're very quiet and you don't enjoy talking to newspaper people.
Well, you know, there's different kind of newspaper people. There's people that try to push you. You know, there's people try to get things out of you. Things don't even pertain to basketball, and them the type of people I like to stay away from.
He didn't want people talking about his family. He didn't want his mother to have to deal with that or his siblings to have to deal with that.
You got to remember where Larry came from. You know, Larry was raised in a 2 or 3 room house on a railroad track. Their family probably lived on $50 a week. He was raised tough.
Larry Joe Bird grew up in southern Indiana, in the twin towns of French Lick and West Baden. The Valley, as locals call it, was a tough working-class area. Tiny and remote, it was one of the poorest places in the state.
I didn't know that people made millions of dollars. I didn't know that everybody had a family car. I was in my own cocoon. I was in a small town with the people I knew, and I thought I would live there for the rest of my life.
Arriving Pearl Harbor Day 1956, Larry was the 4th of 6 kids born to Georgia and Joe Bird. Early on, he and his older brothers earned a reputation around the Valley.
We were always considered troublemakers. We're either fighting amongst ourselves or there was always one of us fighting somebody. Larry was always one that kind of instigated things, you know.
If I get my brother in a fight with somebody his age, I was happy as hell, because I like to see him get beat up, and that's just the way it was. If I got in a scrape with some kid, and my brothers didn't come to my side, they knew that when he got home, my dad was going to whip him.
Larry and my dad were best of friends. They done everything together. When my dad would go out to my grandma's house, Larry would always go with him. They'd go fishing, do a lot of things together.
But Joe Bird also had a darker side, stemming from a traumatic tour of duty in Korea.
Larry remembers waking up in the middle of the night hearing his father's blood-curdling screams from the nightmares he had had from the war. What happened to his father in the war affected his entire...
Well, that makes sense that, you know, like him not wanting to do interviews and him not wanting to, you know, talk about his family and all that, because, I mean, look how he grew up. You know, he grew up real, like, isolated, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, everything is kept inside, you know, in-house. It ain't all that outside shit going on. So, you know, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
He was never...
Whip him.
Larry and my dad were best of friends. They done everything together. When my dad would go out to my grandma's house, Larry would always go with him. They'd go fishing, do a lot of things together.
But Joe Bird also had a darker side, stemming from a traumatic tour of duty in Korea.
Larry remembers waking up in the middle of the night hearing his father's blood-curdling screams from the nightmares he had had from the war. What happened to his father in the war affected his entire life. He was never able to quite get rid of whatever those demons were.
A talented craftsman, Joe Bird struggled to hold steady jobs. And even when he was working, his demons would, on occasion, drive him to the bottle.
There were times when Joe went out with the guys and had a few beers and the wages didn't come home that night. And that didn't happen every day. It happened once in a while, but when money is as tight as it was for the Birds, once in a while was a major problem for their family.
My mom sometimes worked late, and sometimes she had 2 jobs, but that's the way it was. I worked at school during my lunch hours, worked at the local grocery store, put up hay in the summer. I mean, if you wanted money, you had to get it on your own.
To young Larry, actions spoke louder than words.
He was very quiet, kind of hung to himself a little bit.
I saw Larry take an F in an English class because he had to get up in front of his peers and give a speech. So I won't do it. But he just could not get up in front of his friends and talk. He was that shy.
Of course, next thing you know, when he knew it was time for all of us together at the gymnasium, there he'd be. The minute he'd get a basketball in his hand, things were totally different.
Basketball was just, it came to me, seemed like easy. I didn't have the quickness, I didn't have jumping ability. I just thought the game out.
By his senior year at Springs Valley High, Larry Bird had sprouted into a star. But Bird was from the Valley, hardly a hotbed of talent in the big-time world of Indiana hoops.
The first thing they say, well, they don't play nobody down there. He's from French Lick. They don't play nobody.
I think that put a chip on his shoulder, always having to prove who he was and how good he was.
He was good enough for Indiana University's Bobby Knight to come calling late his senior year. And folks in the Valley couldn't have been prouder. Their local hero was heading 60 miles north to play ball for one of the best college teams in the land.
Once I got to IU, it didn't take long to realize that I was out of my cocoon. I had over 30-some thousand students. That I didn't have the funds. First week and a half, I thought, man, this ain't gonna work.
He left after 24 days.
Damn.
Let my mother down. She didn't talk to me for 2 months. But it didn't matter what other people said. To this day, I don't care.
Back in French Lick, Bird took to working for the city, hauling trash and painting park benches. Meanwhile, by that winter, his father's demons had taken him to an even darker place.
By this point, Joe and Georgia were divorced, and he was behind in his payments to the family. The police came by, and of course they all knew him. So Joe said, hey, I need a few hours to get my affairs together before you take me away. So he called Georgia and he said, you guys will be better off without me, and I'm gonna take my life. And he put the phone down and he killed himself. He shot himself.
When Dad passed, you know, it hurt Larry. I mean, that was his best friend. Is gone now. But Larry didn't show it a lot.
He just didn't say much. You know, he just kind of held it within. I never heard him speak out about it at all.
I was mad when I heard about it, and I was madder after the funeral because I thought he sort of cut out on us during a tough time. But you know, he went through a lot in his life. He did what he had to do.
If Bill Hodges hadn't been as persistent,
Man, that's sad. That mental health, like it's serious. Like, you know, I mean, you look at his story. You know, he went through wars. You know what I'm saying? And then he come back here. You know, in the real world, trying to raise his family. You know what I'm saying? The money's tight and all that shit. Just, you know, like that PTSD. I don't know if they really knew about that back then, but a lot of those veterans really needed they needed some serious counseling, you know what I'm saying? Like some psychological counseling. I think they really should have took care of like them war veterans a lot better than what they did coming in from the wars. Cause like that's some really traumatizing shit, you know, to go from one extreme, like, you know, seeing like your partner, your friends, you know, dying like right beside you, all these bombs dropping, then all of a sudden they say, okay, now you go live your life, you know what I'm saying? And you still having nightmares and shit like that, you know, and then you gotta deal with all the pressures that this world is giving you, but you have no counseling to like, you know, help you out, to like see you through it, you know what I'm saying? it was just too much. It's just a lot of pressure. It's just a lot of pressure. So I'm not saying you should kill, you shouldn't kill yourself, but I can understand like how it can happen. You could get to that point, but man, yeah, that's a sad story though. That's sad.
As he had been, Larry Bird might never have existed in any of our.
He just didn't say much, he just.
Tough time, but he went through a lot in his life. He did what he had to do.
If Bill Hodges hadn't been as persistent as he had been, Larry Bird might never have existed in any of our minds. I believe that with all my heart. I really do.
It was Bill Hodges, a young coach from Indiana State University, who convinced Bird to give college hoops another shot. So with a promise to his mom to graduate, Bird headed to Terre Haute and ISU, a school that never so much had been to the NCAA tournament.
Once I started playing, it's the same old thing. He's at a small school and he ain't playing against anybody, which is fine. Still dominated.
Wherever Hoosiers gather, they no longer talk of weather. Indiana has a new state bird. Now his claim to fame is just the way he plays the game. Indiana has a new state bird. It's not the cardinal now. Hey Larry, take a bow. Indiana has a new state bird.
By the time he had led tiny ISU as a senior to a 33-0 record and a spot in the '79 title game, Larry Bird had become, alongside Magic Johnson, the talk of college basketball. Just a year after sharing the court on Team USA, they were back together. And the day before the big game, Magic couldn't wait to greet his old playmate.
Indiana State was on practicing, and we were waiting in the tunnel. We got there early. I wanted to definitely say hello to Larry, When they came through, it was like nobody was saying nothing. I wanted to go toward him, like his guys, made sure that he didn't say nothing. And then they kind of started snickering, like, Michigan State, you in trouble. We're going to kill you guys tomorrow.
I probably did snub him. I don't remember it, but I'm sure I did. I didn't want any, like I call it love fest, hugging and slapping high fives with opponent. You're there for a reason. You're there to win a game.
LeBron James. This era, that's what they do in this era. It's all hugging, slapping fives, buddy, Bird was a serious dude, man. He was serious.
Want any, like I call it love fest, hugging and slapping high fives with opponent. You're there for a reason. You're there to win a game.
That just said it's on now.
It is Indiana State against Michigan State. I'm Bryant Gumbel, and the fans here are going bananas.
I mean, let's face it, if Larry Bird were black and came from Chicago, it wouldn't have been as big a deal. They were polar opposites. One black, one white, one outgoing, one shy. That was the charm of the attraction.
The Bird against Magic. All of the superlatives have been used, and believe me, all of them have been warranted.
Heading into the tournament, Magic was the bigger star. But by tip-off, it was Bird, having hardly missed a shot in the semifinal, who had become the focus of fans, and more importantly, of Michigan State.
We actually had two men on Larry everywhere he went.
There he is, Dick. Look at they have him sandwiched in completely.
I'm surprised they didn't play a box on one, four guys on Larry and one on the other four, because they didn't have a lot of talent. If you stop Larry, you pretty much stop them.
Look at the pressure around him. 2-3 men, and he's short.
I didn't play well at all. Biggest game of my life, I didn't play well.
Bird, way short.
I think our length and our size, our jumping ability was able to bother him.
Bird hanging, can't score.
I didn't shoot well, missed, I think 3 free throws.
Larry Bird has had a cold shooting night.
I battled him, but I didn't have it.
State
Damn, I know Johnson got up.
National champions, 1979.
Magic, not only were you a leader on offense, I thought you did a great job on Larry Bird in the zone, denying him the ball.
Yes, Coach gave us a good game plan to go against Larry Bird, and all we had to do was go out and do it. That's what we done.
And congratulations, Super Bowl game.
Wow.
It was over, you know. That was my 4 years. I was done. No, it still hurts. And when you win 33 in a row and you walk into a game, you know, you never know what to expect, but
damn.
I expect to win. We didn't win. Toughest loss I ever took.
Wait. What's up with it? What's it? Player fouls, 33.
A lot.
The National Basketball Association, in its 33rd season, is troubled by diminishing crowds and declining television rating.
You know what? I'm hearing a lot of 33s, 33. You notice that? He just said 33. Bird just said, I won 33 in a row. His jersey is 33. Magic Johnson was he wearing 32? And then on that scoreboard, for some, I don't know, it said 33. I don't know, there's some weird shit going on.
Signs that fan interest may be waning.
If college basketball was flourishing at the end of the 1970s, the pro game was crumbling. After the golden era of Bill Russell and Jerry West in the 1960s, a merger with the ABA in 1976 had led not only to new teams, but a new temperament.
It was a new league with new times, with renegades, with individuals.
Them fools, God damn. Hey, them fools was really throwing blows. Man, they don't get down like that in the NBA no more at all.
There was an argument made, plausibly, I think, that it was too black a league for the United States of America in the late 1970s.
You think about the Knickerbockers at the time. The running joke was it was the Knickerbockers. You know, that's what it was. It was the N-word.
It's turning off a lot of white customers that are coming to the game, you know.
Why?
I think there's a conflict between the white and the black, and I don't enjoy going to basketball and seeing all black players.
Hey, at least he's honest. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I'd rather you be honest than lie in my face, you feel me? So, salute. At least he's honest.
I think when they said too black, they meant not just in terms of color, but in terms of style. Let me get mine, and the hell with yours.
Basketball for us was about the best moves. You wanted to be that big player that everybody talked about. You wanted to be the one. You didn't think about winning championships or team play.
And those were just the issues on the court.
The NBA had this image of an all-black league with a bunch of guys.
And you know what's so sad about that? I hate to say it, but as black people, that's exactly how we live our lives. Everybody's about the individual. You know what I'm saying? It's we don't work as a unit. We don't work as a team. It's all about me. I want to be the best. I want to be better than you. Now, you know what I'm saying? So what he said is reflects us as a whole. I mean, it's not just sports. It's all facets of life, like sports, just family, just everything. You know what I'm saying? That whole, I just want to be the best. I just want to be seen. You know what I'm saying? That's unfortunately that's us right there in a nutshell.
Drugs. The teams were losing money, and they had no sponsors, and that's pretty much a death knell right there.
It's a known fact that you need your white superstars. You just need more white ball players on the team for the white fans to identify with.
And in the newest member of the Boston Celtics, that's exactly what the league appeared to be getting.
There's hope he can help solve professional basketball's difficulties, which some say are compounded by a question of black and white.
The great white hope. What does that mean?
Well, you know, it's very hard to say because there's a lot of great white players around, and I just hope that I can just fit in as well as some of them that has fit in.
He ran away from that designation. He made it very clear, almost from day one, that he was not the great white hope.
You know, the great players are the black players, and they're the best.
Such deference meant little to black Celtics like Curtis Rowe, Sidney Wicks, and Cedric Maxwell, who looked at Bird and saw not the great white hope, but another case of great white hype.
He didn't impress me no more than any white guy I've ever seen play before. I think that you would say that most black players at the time were racist, in the sense that we did not think that you could find a white guy who could play better than any black guy.
When I walk in the first day of camp, them guys were on the floor stretching, and here comes the white savior, here comes this, here comes that. I sort of enjoyed it because I knew I was going to battle them all day. But Curtis and Sidney didn't last long. They didn't even make it through the first practice, and they were cut. So then it was just Cedric.
I'm thinking, oh, he's slow, he can't get off a shot. He's not that strong. This is going to be a layup. Bam, knocks down the jump shot. Okay, maybe that was luck. Gets the ball again. Bam, knocks down another jump shot. Now I'm thinking like, okay, hey, you know what? I'm gonna D this guy up. I'm gonna show him what it's like. 20 feet away, bam. 25 feet away, bam. My mind just goes something. Damn, this white guy can play.
It was a good thing, too.
Shit.
The storied Celtics might have been the winningest team in NBA.
Man, shit, that color shit, it don't matter, man. Just because you're black, it don't mean, you know, you're just born. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just, if a white guy plays basketball like Bird, he was playing as a kid all the time. He worked at it, you know, so of course he gonna be great. You know, he put the work in, just like these brothers, you know, they put the work in. So, you know, it ain't got nothing to do with no color. It's just who's putting in the work. Simple as that.
But they were fresh off their worst season in 30 years. And in Bird, they had a player who was not only supremely talented, but tough enough to take on any challenge.
You know, I always played like everybody in the world was against me. I thought everybody was against me. I used to think up things to get me rattled before a game.
He knew how to fight. I know that from off the floor. One night, somebody was giving one of his buddies a hard time, and Larry went over and, you know, said, hey, you know, this is my friend, and this guy was a pretty good-sized guy. By golly, they go out back, and the guy turns and says something to Larry, and I mean, Larry hit this guy, and I caught him. Hit him so hard, I go, whoa. He was from the old school, and that's how he played.
Larry Bird plays it to the hilt, baby.
Man, Larry wasn't no joke.
Played the game hard. Played rough.
There was no frills about him. He came in, he threw elbows. There was nothing smooth about Larry. New Englanders like that. They're hardworking people. They like that that's how people view them, and that's what Larry was.
Larry Bird follows his own shot.
They also like winners. And when Bird led the Celtics to the NBA Championship in just his second season, he was finally one of those too. Boston loved Larry Bird.
Second season?
It just wasn't so clear at first how much Bird loved the city back.
There's only one place I'd rather be, French Lick. Thank you.
Man, Larry was almost agoraphobic in his treatment of anything outside his hometown.
He wanted to be the Wizard of Oz. He wanted to intimidate people and keep them at bay. The further we are away from each other, the more I like it.
I had a nice little house. I had my little yard. I want to go from there to practice back. If we had a game coming up, I want to go there to the game and back home. It was all basketball. My whole life was basketball.
If he was just sitting there with just me, you were looking around mumbling, trying to find things that we had in common that we could talk about. Now we start talking about basketball, start talking about players. It was, you know, it was great. U.S. history? Nope.
You know, we forced passes, we made errors down the stretch.
Daily events? Nope.
I made the shot, and from then on we was up by 2, and they had to get back in the game, which they did.
Politics? Nope.
Try to not do anything I can't do or do no more than what I can do. I just go out and try to do my basic game.
He proudly dubbed himself the Hick from French Lick, and he looked every bit the part. But those who played him for simple did so at their own peril.
One of the great ways, I think, of winding up with no money in your pocket is to think Larry Bird is dumb. Syntax is not intelligence. Unlettered is not stupid.
He's got a great sense of humor. He just didn't show that to people. That didn't mean he didn't have it.
He did, however.
All right, I'm gonna stop it right there and continue with a part 2. But man, yeah, Larry Bird, they don't make him like that no more, man. He just lived and breathed basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't care about nothing flashy. He didn't care about the big houses. He didn't care about the cars. He didn't care about like having a whole bunch of women. He would just focus. And it showed on the court, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could tell like he was no nonsense on that court, man. And his IQ, which is out of this world, like you couldn't, it's tough to beat somebody like that. It's tough to beat somebody that dedicated and that focused to the game, man. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, man, and I'm gonna see y'all on part 2 of this video, and